then there's a wonderful quote that Tim Keller popularized by David Foster Wallace from his book This Is Water, where there's a very famous quote where David Foster Wallace says, in the day-to-day trenches of adult life, there is no such thing as atheism, no such thing as not worshipping. Everybody worships something, right? You can Google that for people who haven't heard that. And he, as an atheist, just talks about what happens if you try and make money, sex, power, your intellect the center, and you end up hollow, and you end up hating yourself. And I think a lot of people realize this. There's lots of people writing into this space. I mean, it's interesting, someone like Jordan Peterson, who, whatever you think of him, has changed the conversation in a few areas. This is in his playbook as well. Yeah. I think a lot of people are realizing that there is a kind of existential crisis in the West. I think particularly among men, actually, but more widely too, because I think we've been told for so long these are the things you ought to be pursuing, and it doesn't work. And as you say, Augustine and Disordered Loves, if you love the wrong thing, you're going to end up hurting yourself and, ironically, hurting the thing you love. I remember actually, again, off this very same talk, I did a version of this in the States a couple of years ago, 2-3 years ago, and it's very, very interesting because usually people talk about the money or the sex or the career chasing stuff, but I had a guy come up to me afterwards and he said, just thank you for that talk. He said it was incredibly helpful. He said, and again gave a bit of his background. He said, I'm recently come back to Christ. I was a Christian in my youth, walked away, but he said, then what brought me back, he said, was exactly as you described. He said that third level of happiness. He said, I thought my family was everything. He says, I thought, the thing that I was living for was my wife and my kids. But what I hadn't realized I'd done is I put them on a pedestal, and they had to be perfect because they were everything to me. And of course, wives and children are not perfect because, like us, they're human. And he said, basically, I idolized my family to such an extent, I then became a monster because I tried to conform them to this vision of what a perfect family should be. And I almost lost them. My wife left me, took the kids. And it took a lot of marital counseling. And finally, he said it took discovering Jesus again and realizing that, no, he is the only one who is perfect. And when that piece went back in, he said, I was able to put the rest of my life back together. He said, thank God. He said, I'm back with my family. My wife has forgiven me for being a total ass. But it's interesting. So even good things, that's the interesting thing, right? Even the good things, family, relationships, children, if we make them the center of everything, that's a disordered love.
So why are Christians getting this so wrong? In terms of, we're asking all these, if you pick up, apologetics books, typically the sort of, the sort of guys that want to sort of intellectually joust about, the ontological argument and divine hiddenness and things, which is probably a bit more relevant than
that. Probably is more,
divine hiddenness, definitely, yeah.
But why are Christians spending so much time writing about answering questions that no one's actually asking? It just seems like we really are. We're always just so far behind.
Yeah.
We're always playing catch up. Because my sense is in about 10 years there'll be all these books coming out. For apologetics about dealing with all these questions, but we're sort of 10 years too late. We'll be something else by then.
Do you know, it's a really good question. I think I'll be very careful to start with and say, look, there are quite a lot of people, I think, working in this space. I would never want to give the impression it's like, there's a handful of us, myself and Glenn Scrivener and a few others. I mean, I think, for example, one of the things that first drew me to Ravi Zacharias Ministries, to Azad AM, is Ravi, back in the sort of late 70s, early 80s, had got this. I think Francis Schaeffer had as well. I think Labrie was always very good at this. I think, say, C.S. Lewis, kind of further back. And then today, there's all kinds of people. I mean, I mentioned Oak Hill a few minutes ago because of Christie based there. You've got Dan Strange there. Dan's stuff on culture is just phenomenal. But I think the reason that some apologists and apologetic enthusiasts miss this is we're not careful. We speak in bubbles. The internet has made this worse, right? You can, there's a phrase that I have a vague feeling it was a sociologist at MIT a few years ago came up with this phrase, digital flocking, that, we flock together with people just like us. And apologists do this. So we all hang around and we share the same stuff. And, YouTube, Facebook does this, the same article goes round and round. And then, younger ones come through and go, oh, I want to be an apologist. Oh, okay, I've just seen this series of articles go through by Bill Craig. Therefore, I need to do that.
Yeah.
And it's not so much Bill Craig's fault, because he's very logical and philosophical. It's just that everyone decides to copy him.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's the thing. There's a lot of sort of copying going on. And I think one of the things I'm very grateful for when I first joined the RZAM team in 2010, I remember sort of, sitting down with Ravi, and Ravi sort of saying, look, you need to be the very best version of Andy Bannister that God has called you to be. Do not try and be Ravi Zacharias. Do not try and be Michael Ramsden or Amy or Ewing. You have to be you, because that's why we're growing the team. We needed a different range of voices. And that's what I think we need more of. I think we need more men and women, and especially women and people, ethnic minorities too, because apologetics is very male and white.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that needs to change, because everyone, I think apologetics is for everyone. Everyone who's a Christian is called to give a reason for the hope that they have.